smart enough just to watch the interpreter, but if you need any help at any time, we have staff here available already. Okay.
We're going to start, I would guess that after about my third sentence, 30 people are going to walk through that door and we're going to have to start again, but I don't want to stand and wait for them. And so you can see the subject of this workshop is ACT. Now in New Mexico, you are not required to take the ACT unless you want to. In Colorado,
you're required.
Are you?
Yeah, if they are applying in another state, they're still required to take it. If they're going to university in another state and they're a New Mexico student, they still are required.
But Colorado requires all students, whether they're going, yes, thank you very much. Colorado requires all students, whether they're going to college or not, to take the ACT. So everybody in Colorado takes the ACT when they're a junior. In fact, they will take it on April 28th this year. They take it at their high school. But nevertheless, it's college entrance exam, so it's a good idea to take it. And the title of this is Secrets of the ACT. And actually, there isn't a lot of secret to doing well on the ACT. The secret is preparing. But there's a lot more to that than just, oh yeah, I'll study, I know, I need to prepare. And that's what I want to work with today. Our goal is that by the time every one of you leave, you are going to have an action plan. And your action plan is going to start with that first sentence that's up there that says, when I take the ACT on whatever date you're going to take it on. Okay, let's stand by for a second. All of you folks coming in, are you guys doing ACT? Come on up to the front pretty please. If you're a junior, then you'll probably be taking it on April 28th. If you want, you can take it on April 18th or June 13th, and those are the registered dates, and those are true nationally. That will work in New Mexico as well as in Colorado. So, let me stop for a second. I'm Vicki Brown. I'm a retired guidance counselor, and one of my passions was helping people do better than they thought they could on the ACT. And we had some pretty good luck. And I would like to say right off the bat that Educating Children of Color, for anyone who lives here in the Springs, has a free ACT workshop. It's going to start in the end of January, and it will run until we do the test on April 28th. And I invite you to come join us. It will be either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. You can choose which one. We're running 2 of them. And it will go every week, once a week, unless the weather is really bad, until we get to the test date. And the way you sign up is you go on the website, and then you go to the left, and you click on Programs, click on ACT, and you're good to go. Come on down. We want you down here.
And I have a question for you.
Yes. It will be here in Colorado Springs.
In this building?
Oh, no, at the YMCA, the downtown YMCA, it's on Nevada. Yeah.
Okay, because just to let you know, half of us are students from Colorado, and then some of them are also from New Mexico.
And we would love for you to come join us. And so you go on the website, sign up, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
I would like to take a time out. We are surrounded by members of the Cadet Corps from the United States Air Force Academy who have really graciously volunteered their time to help us this afternoon. They don't get much time to themselves, and they've taken some of that time to come and be with us, and I appreciate that a bunch. I would like for you guys to kind of spread yourselves out among us, introduce yourselves, and take a minute to get to know the students that are around you, and then we're going to go from there. By then we should have any leftover folks coming to join us. And so since we have most of the game over here, in fact, but somebody's got to.
Okay, I can get over here. I'm Monty. I'm a Monty, yes. I'm a sophomore at the Empress Academy. I took the ACT a while ago, but I still know like how to do well in it. I'm going to see you yeah, we'll go with math this time. Just say like have any questions.
Okay, so let's get started. I would like for you to take this and take the pencil out of your bag. And here is your goal. You're going to fill in the blanks. And so up at the top, where it says goal, that's it. And I want you to do it by sub-scores. Pretty generally, people say, oh, I got a 25 on the ACT. Well, that 25 is an average of English, math, reading, and science. And most of the time, people are better in one than the others. And so I'd like to talk in sub-scores. And besides that, ACT is getting ready to change the way they report their scores. So up here at the very top where it says goal. See where it says goal? Everybody, gentlemen, want to check around and see everybody good to go with where it says goal? Everyone see where it says goal? And so, and I have about 6 days worth of material to present in the next 40 minutes, so we got to rock and roll here pretty quick. When you're writing your goal down, you put your pencil down and look at me. Now let's talk about ACT scores for a second. Why would you want to get a certain score? If you get an 18 on English and reading an ACT, you don't have to take anything remedial when you go to college. Otherwise, you will. If you get a 23 in math on ACT, you can go directly into college algebra. You don't have to take the easier classes that teach you math that you didn't learn yet. If you want to hit the Colorado average, I think that's 22-ish or someplace in that ballpark. I think the national average is probably a tiny bit higher than that. If you want to be competitive for scholarships, you want to aim in the high 20s. And so, one trick is getting that score, I want to talk about how that happens. There are these sheets kind of spread around, and maybe, gentlemen, if you guys, if you could take these sheets over here since there's nobody there. And I've got one up here also. I went crazy when I was cropping it, and I cropped off the things. And so the first column is English, second column math, third column reading, fourth column science. What this chart tells you is, for example, if in English I want to score a 23, I need to get between 55 and 57 questions correct. Now that's not an exact science, but it's close enough to give us a really good idea of what we're doing. If I want to score a 27 in English, then I need to get 64 questions correct. If I want to score a 23 in math, I want to be able to go directly to college algebra, then I need to get 37 or 38 questions right. And so over at the side there, someplace where you can find some space, would you put down how many questions you need to get correct? Let's say that I scored a 21 and I got 50 or 52, between 50 and 52 questions right. What if I want to score a 23? Do you see that I only need to get 5 more questions right than I did the last time? Not everyone knows that. And so that's pretty doable, right? Probably you could go through that test of 75 questions and find 5 things that you could get right next time. Yeah, no? And so that's part of what I want you to know. That it's not just a matter of saying, oh, I need to get a better score. It's a matter of knowing I got to find 5 things that I can get correct next time, that I didn't get correct this time. And so the trick then would be to start with a baseline score. And you can get that lots of different ways. I would really encourage you to take an ACT prep class of some sort. Sometimes in your schools, people work with ACT sorts of things, and so that could be a way. You can buy books and do it on yourself if you're pretty self-motivated. Once again, ECOC does a class, and I recommend it. I'm a little biased, but I recommend it. And so our goal for the rest of this time is to have you write down strategies about how you will get more questions correct. Now, preparation isn't just a matter of, oh, let me study. It's more strategic than that. Strategic meaning doing some planning and kind of knowing what you're doing. Okay, that's what you're writing down for me. Now, I want to take a minute and tell you that ACT never changes in its format. And so, once you've read the questions or read the directions to ACT, don't ever read them again. Probably the only time in your life an educator is going to tell you, don't read the directions. It's a big fat waste of time because it will never ever change. Each and every time you take the ACT, if you took it 500 more times, perish the thought, there would be 75 questions in English. English would be the first test. It would last for 45 minutes. The second test will be math. It will last for an hour. There will be 60 questions. You'll get a break. The third test will be reading. It will last for 35 minutes. There will be 40 questions. questions. The last test will be science, same deal. You'll have 40 questions, 35 minutes. They'll always be grouped the same. And that's helpful to know because then you can start planning how you're going to attack it. So you prepare strategically. That means knowing what the test is about and knowing how you're going to take it. You got to prepare academically because if there are some holes in your learning someplace, somehow it's a good idea to get those figured out. Emotionally and physically, that works also. And so let's talk about the strategically part. In order to get some clues strategically, you've got to prepare for the test somehow, and that's back to the book or taking a test or taking a class. And let me just tell you some things. Do you know that test booklet is yours? And so you can write all over it. In fact, it's a good idea to write on it. Do you know that it makes much better sense? You know, in most tests, you answer something and bubble it, answer something else and bubble it, answer something else and bubble it, and each time you stop answering and bubble it, it breaks your train of thought. It makes a whole lot better sense. Like in reading, there'll be 5 sections of 15 questions, and it's a little story. So read that whole first thing and answer them in the book. Circle the right answer in the book, and then go over to the answer sheet and bubble in that 15. And then you're not asking your mind to switch back and forth. Do you also know that as long as you're still within the English test, you can do those little subsections in any order you want? What if you start reading the first one and you think, I don't even know what they're talking about? Skip to the second one. Just make sure that on the bubble sheet, you start answering at number 16. So you keep the answers straight. You've got to be really clear about that. And then when you have time at the end, go back and answer the one that you didn't like to begin with. There are lots of ways that you can manage how you do things. You don't have to start from the first one and go to the last one. There are lots of tricks like that. Those are the strategy kinds of things. And so right now, I would like for you to write down in the action plan, see where it says action steps. I want you to write down something that you're willing to do that will help you get some strategies. And that something is going to be along the lines of getting a book and working with it yourself, doing an ACT prep class, maybe talking to someone at school who has a lot of expertise in ACT. But I'm not talking right now about just learning the right answers to the questions. I'm talking about really knowing how the test itself operates. Do you know that a semicolon and a period do the very same function in English, and there will be at least 2 of those on any given ACT test? And if you couldn't use a period there, you can't use a semicolon there. Do you know that dashes always come in pairs unless there's a period at the end of the sentence? There are some kinds of things that in a prep class you'll learn that ACT likes to do. In fact, you'll catch yourself going, oh yeah, there's that one. They really like redundancy in English, meaning redundantly, I'm not going to say it right. Saying the same thing over and over again. I didn't need to say both of those. If I tell you that I got up really early this morning at 2 o'clock a.m., you don't need to know all of that. You just need to know one of those things. I got up really early, or I got up at 2 a.m., or I got up this morning. But you don't have to tell me all 3. We don't start a sentence with also and end it with 2. Also, I have a lot more stuff to tell you too. Because it's the same thing. And so, do you all have an action step down now? I'll stop talking, and you do an action step, please. And would you please make sure that you're writing small enough so you can see through all 3 columns. Now, the next thing you're going to do is what's going to stop you from doing that? What are the challenges? One of the things that stops people from doing our prep classes is at 6 o'clock in the evening, and sometimes they just get through the sport and have to come directly over and they get tired. you need? Are you going to need a ride to get there? Are you going to need money to buy a book? Are you going to need somebody to watch your little sister while you go to the prep class? And now, gentlemen, as we walk around, everybody's got to be doing this, so stop me if we don't have everybody with a goal and one action step, please. First action step. Are you going to take it as a study? Are you going to do this in class? Or what are you going to do to learn about the test itself? But you're going to tell us right now what you're going to, when are you taking the test? In April. This. Okay. And so we want you to follow through with either a book or class, something that helps you learn.
Okay.
Okay. And so these action steps are really specific. We're not going to say something like, I'm just going to study for the test. Right now, I just want you to focus on that little piece where you'll figure out the strategies for the test. And so that really is going to be either getting the book and studying it or signing up for a prep class. Okay, so you guys, everybody stop for a second, please. It's tempting to put down really general things, and the problem with general things is you don't know when you got it done or if you got it done. I'm going to work really hard to do better on the ACT. Well, how do we know if I worked really hard to do better on the ACT? We can't measure that. We don't know when I needed to do it. But if I say, by the middle of February, I am going to own a book that will give me information, then I'm going to know whether that happened or not in the middle of February. By the end of January, I will have signed up for ECOC's ACT prep class. Okay, we know whether or not you did that. And so we want it to be really specific, and the measure of that is, are we going to be able to tell whether you did that or not? It's hard to tell whether I'm working hard at something. And when I say even things like, I'm going to take every day to learn a little more, well, what is learning a little more, and how do we know if I did it or not? And that gets really easy to say, tomorrow I'm going to learn a little more instead of today. And this is just the first step we're putting down. We're going to put some more steps down. Okay, the next kind of preparation is related to this one. So academically, once you take a baseline test, and that needs to be an action step, when are you going to know what ACT score you could get right now? Have you already taken one in school so you know what score you got? Are you going, again, you could do it in a Are you going to do it out of a book? There are practice tests in the book. You need to take a test to know what score you've got right now. Because then you can see how many questions you got right and which ones you got wrong. And that helps you know where you need to work. And so how are you going to get a baseline score? I will take a test. I will take a practice test by February 7th. What's going to stand in your way of taking a practice test on February 7th? Well, practice test you can take anytime. So, the real one is passed. Okay, a little feedback here. Am I making sense, or do I need to stop and help us figure something out, or do we need to just keep going? Keep going? And so once you've taken your baseline test, now you know what you need help with academically. And so what's the very best way to get academic help? Do you have a favorite math teacher, or one that you can least tolerate? Go get them and say, hey, look at this question. Show me how to do it. There is not a teacher alive who will not be thrilled if you bring their subject matter to them and say, teach me this. And so, academically, you start working your way through the things that you don't know how to do. In English, you've got to know how to make subjects and verbs clear, because there are a ton of questions about that. In math, do you know that on ACT you don't need to know calculus? There are only 7 trig questions. It's all basic algebra and geometry, and some algebra 2, and a whole lot of word questions. Lots of us, especially if we're not so mathematically inclined, are not wild about word problems, and you have to get over that. And there are some strategies for working your way through that. There are a ton of word questions. So how are you going to get over your fear of that and work on the word questions? So I want an action step about how you're going to academically prepare. How are you going to learn what you don't already know? You need a baseline score so you can tell what you don't already know. And then how are you going to learn that? Is your mom an English teacher? Do you have someone at school that you like that teaches math? Maybe you've got someone at home that can help. What will stand in the way? If it's your girlfriend, are you going to break up with her? That would be bad. Okay, now, this is a website, and I like it a lot. Would you write down www.number2.com, like the number 2 pencil? In fact, that's its logo. It's a little number 2 pencil, an orange pencil. And the reason that I think this is such a good website is because you can prepare for lots of different tests. It doesn't have to just be ACT. It can be others also. And it's not a full test. It's one question at a time, and you can choose. So let's say you just want to prepare your math. So you tell them you want math questions, and it'll give you a math question. And if you know it, it gives you something different. If you don't know it, it gives you something kind of like it till you get it. And you can do it for 5 minutes at a time. You can do it for an hour at a time. You can hop back on twice a week. It's all self-paced. That's one great way to prepare. The
keep doing this.
Academically, one of three things happens. You either make a silly mistake, like they say which answer is not the correct one and you forgot to read the not. Or it's something that you learned once but you forgot. Have you noticed that you get taught an awful lot of stuff in school and then they go on to something else? And once you look at it, it's like, oh, I knew that. I just didn't know it when I took the test. And so now you're reminded. Or it's something that you've never ever learned. And in that case, you got to find somebody to teach you. Or decide if it's worth learning. If you really need to learn the word problems, don't worry about the trig. There are 7 trig questions, and you can miss every one of them, and still do just fine on the math part. If you've got all the rest of it under control and don't know trig yet, find somebody to teach you trig. I just like this picture. Do you ever feel that way when you take a test? Or do you ever feel that way when you're thinking about taking a test? Yeah. Do you know that there's some pretty good evidence that says that peppermint activates your brain? It makes you think more clearly. Yeah. I wouldn't just make that up. I was going to copy the evidence because I knew that somebody would say, I don't think so. Just Google peppermint and test technique and see what it says. Don't do it right now. This may be for a minute. But it's an easy, what it costs if it doesn't work. And so if you want to do this kind of peppermint, chew peppermint gum. Now there's an ACT test rule that says that you're not supposed to eat or drink, but I think if you have a piece of candy in your pocket, partly unwrapped, you can split it out. Nobody's ever going to say anything. If you haul your picnic out on your desk, then probably they'll be upset about it. And so, do you also know that there's good evidence that says orange oil, like from an orange, just the smell of orange calms us down? When we do testing, I do some college and career stuff at one of the schools in our district, and when we do testing, we have oranges for a snack because the smell of oranges just kind of calms you down. And so when you peel the orange, the smell of the orange is still in your hands. And it's worth a try. Now, other probably more accepted kinds of ways of just calming yourself down, breathing. You all know that when we get scared, we kind of do the fight or flight thing, and we breathe right up here. And the more you breathe right up here, the more scared you get, and the more you don't remember anything you ever knew. If you stop a minute and breathe, it will help you. Now, having said all that, the very best thing for test anxiety is to practice on the test. Because if you do it over and over long enough, your mind forgets to panic. It's like, oh, I've done this, like, gosh, I've done this. And so there's a lot to be said. And I am not an advocate of taking a whole hour-long math test. You know, marathon runners only run 26 miles when they run the marathon. I think the ACT is a whole lot the same. Break it down and do 20 math questions. You'll get just as much good out of that as you will doing an hour of math. And for sure, don't practice by doing all 4 tests at the same time. Again, the only time you catch a marathon runner running a marathon is when they don't practice by running 26 miles right off the bat. And so we have to pay attention to emotionally what we're thinking about the test. Now, the emotional and physical part, well, all of it actually, you can't start doing it the day before the test. Because then you just confuse yourself. You have to, right now, start thinking about what is it that helps me calm down. And start doing it right now. Check out the peppermint, all kinds of peppermint around here. Take peppermints with you and check it out and see. One of my reasons for giving you peppermints this afternoon is I knew this was the end of a really long day, and I thought there was an outside chance that peppermint would help people pay attention. Oh, okay, I'm willing to do this. And then the physical preparation. If you believe that Snickers bars and Dr. Pepper are the breakfast of champions, about halfway through the because you get that sugar and caffeine rush, and then you crash. But again, you can't just start the morning of the test and eat protein for breakfast. You gotta be willing to start now and work up to that. Your brain needs water. It does. It needs water a lot more than it needs any of the energy drinks or anything. Physically, if you don't get sleep the night before, then things don't work as well. So think about the physical part of it. So now that we've said all of that, I would like for you to finish out your action plan. I'm hoping on this action plan that there will be steps for each of those kinds of preparation. How are you going to know more about the test? How are you going to learn the things you don't already know? How are you going to calm yourself down if you worry about things? And then for all of my friends from either school for the deaf and blind, what about the accommodations? When do you apply for those? Because all of you get accommodations on the test, and so a counselor or an instructor has to help you apply for those. And then that gives you a chance to do well. So, have I explained well enough what I want you to do in the next about 10 minutes? We're going to stop at 4 because we have one more thing to do in that last 5 minutes. And so would you please finish working on these? And then the way this is going to work, I'll just give you a little preview, is you're going to take the white one with you because we really want you to do this. And then the second one, we're going to have you mail, put your address on it. We're going to mail it to you in about a month or so to kind of remind you, oh yeah, I was going to work on the ACT. And then the third one, I said it wrong, the white one on a weekend. The second one you're going to mail to yourself or take with you, and the one that you don't take with you, you're going to mail to yourself. So we have some way to know how people accomplish things. Do you have questions for me? Yes, ma'am. Yes. I want you to finish filling out this action plan form. And I'm hoping that you have the goal, and I'm hoping that your action steps, you will talk about doing something to prepare, just to know about the test itself, something to fill out the gaps in your learning, something to learn stuff you need to, something to deal with yourself emotionally, and something to deal with yourself physically. Then when you're all through, you're going to give the white copy to us. You're going to take the middle copy with you. And the third copy, you're going to fold and freeze and put in your envelope and put your address on your envelope. Make sense? So I'm hoping that I will look out and see all kinds of writing going on. Can I look? That's so good. How would you stop thinking that? And so when you catch yourself thinking, oh, I don't want to do this, how are you going to turn that into a positive thought? And you know, something else that works is if you have, do you have a little brother or sister?
I do, I have a sister.
And so if you had a little sister and she was going, oh, I can't do this, what would you say to her?
Well, I love my sister, so I would just tell her, yes, I don't know.
Be at least that nice to yourself.
Sometimes we aren't so nice to ourselves. We're nice to everyone else, but we're not so nice to ourselves. And we deserve that. Where will you get your book? Walmart? Or, you know, the library too. And if you want to come join us for the AC's workshop, that would be, I teach it, and that would be very good. Did you go? Oh. Well, of course. But are all of you required to take it if you're in Colorado, or because normally Colorado students are required? Do you get to exempt, to opt out of that? I just didn't know if kids in Colorado had to take it now. Yeah, New Mexico is not, but Colorado is. That's it. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, someone just asked about tests on computers. Not the real one, but there are a ton of practice things online. If you just Google ACT practice test, there are all kinds of free things online. You don't even have to take the whole thing, take part of it. The whole idea is to begin getting a feel for how the test is laid out and what you know and what you don't. But you guys, do you also all know, speaking of pay for the ACT, if you qualify for free or reduced lunch and you don't even have to eat it, if your family income qualifies, you get a waiver so you can take the ACT test free. Seriously. And so the way you access that is go to your counselor and say, I need an ACT fee waiver. And you know, you guys, I didn't even tell you that Evan was helping us. I introduced our cadet friends, but Evan is from Colorado College, and he's given his time to help us also. All right, gentlemen, let's go to the end of the day evaluation. So, in your bags, there's an evaluation form. It says overall evaluation. Could you get it out, please? So, would you look in your bag? When someone's got it, would you wave it at the rest of us so we know what we're looking for? Would you fill it out pretty please? And once you do that, then you get a ticket for a drawing. And you're going to give your evaluation back to any of our gentlemen in blue here. So, we should have three things. First of all, we want the white copy, and it's just going to be laying in front of you. We want the envelope that has one of the copies in it, and your address on the outside of the envelope, and we want your evaluation. Yes? Are we doing okay? Thank you. Are there any other questions over here?
No.
First one, just tear it off and lay it right.
You gotta do what you want to do, like, like, soon.
Some of what this
Study and I want to get Hawaii, and I want to become, I want to get to CSI.
Oh,
Chapter. I love that. I know me too. I want to get into that. What do you want to do?
are you good at, like, you like doing hair?
Yeah.
I used to do hair when I was really too, but it's not like, I was good at it.
So you and press
That's pretty impressive.
really hard.
I couldn't do any of that.
And so, my friends, you have these things in your bags. It's an evaluation about the day, and we really want you to fill it out and tell us what went well, what you would like to have happen differently. We want this day next year to be even better for students, all students, than it was this year. And so if you will fill this out, that helps us do that. And then when you fill this out, our cadet assistants have a card for you that you get to enter a drawing that you can win either a Target or Chipotle gift card. We are at T-minus 5 minutes and counting. I have to let you go at 4:05. Okay, we're at about T-minus 3 minutes and counting. And You're going to go back over to Armstrong. She is going to announce scholarship winners, and it'll be about 30 minutes, and then anyone who has won a scholarship comes out and verifies with the scholarship committee, and you're out of here. Thanks for spending the day with us.